Okay, once again, I'm here with NickHansinger, and today we're going to be talking about living with passion. And the reason why I invited Nick onto the show here with us is because I feel that Nick is somebody who absolutely lives with passion. And mate, when we first met was actually about a month ago. We were at the Coaching Leadership Academy, and at that event, you and Donna really inspired me. And we struck up a conversation. I told you that I had this big dream to have thousands of people hear my voice, because I believe that God has given me something that's really special to actually have that voice be communicated out there in the world. And you were so optimistic and encouraging in my vision that I really took into your vision too. And some of the things that you were excited about with your yoga studio and things like that. And it wasn't just because you were excited about my thing that I was excited about your thing, but also I really just caught part of your vision with where you're going with your life and what you and Donna are doing and how you've been stepping in. So do you want to share just for the audience just a little bit about what you and Donna do, and just maybe just to try to weave it in a way to help people just maybe get a takeaway as well, to understand a bit of where you're coming from?
For sure, yeah. And I just wanted to say, it was really just so inspiring to hear your message too. That time at Coaching Leadership Academy, it was just such a joy to spend together, and both of us there, and all three of us there really up front was a gas, right? So I just love being around that energy. But for me and Donna, we both own a yoga studio right now, and my background, just so you know a little bit about me, is we're both musicians. And then Donna had this crazy idea to come back and open up a yoga studio, and she did exactly that. And so we've been building that together, and then at a certain point, Donna's really good for asking new questions, and she just asked me, like, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this coaching thing? And I was just blown away. I was like, yeah, this is perfect. It was exactly what I was looking to do and to share, and in the way that I like to work with people. So it just made perfect sense. And since then, Donna and I have been building a coaching business together, and helping to integrate that with our community in a really powerful way, so that we could just help people find creative ways to come into their full potential and really live the lives that they want to live and that they deserve to live.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's so cool. And there's going to be a lot of people that are listening right now, and they're probably on this show because they're like, okay, sounds good to live with passion. That's a really nice thing to do. But they might have these reservations for themselves. It's like, oh, how do I really do that, really? Like, realistically, how does that look, to live with passion? Would you mind you told me a bit of your story. Would you mind sharing a bit of your story and just to help weave your story maybe in a way that they could actually see, okay, this guy's the real deal?
Yeah. It's funny too. You mentioned that, and a lot of people, it's like, that's a luxury, right? I happen to be able to live with some passion, and that's really nice. And it is a luxury, and it absolutely is a gift. But I also believe that it's really, really necessary for people to live from that kind of a space, to bring out more of their energy, to bring out more of their gifts, because then we just have more to share with everybody. And economically, for sure, like, there's going to be benefits to that, and building thriving businesses and lives around those sorts of things. But spiritually, if you want to get into that area of it, it's entirely necessary, because when we're not living from a passionate place, when we're not living from somewhere that's really authentic to ourselves, and somewhere that's really inspiring, we're always going to be working against the grain, especially when we're not in our strengths and doing things that are in our nature. So that opens up a whole door to start to explore ourselves in newer and more meaningful ways, and really start to look below the surface of what's driving us. So I absolutely believe it's not just a luxury, that living with passion, living with inspiration is absolutely vital. Absolutely vital for our world. And so for me, in my story, like, that's part of, what kept guiding me is when I worked in administration, I was one of the personnel managers for the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. I just loved being around the people, and I loved working with the people and making those connections. As a musician myself, I just really enjoyed that. Yeah. But at the same time, I felt limited within that role. And so I could only connect with them in a certain way. I was bound by a contract, certain things like that. And then And then, so at a certain point, I'll just go teach yoga, right? I'll have a lot more freedom to do that. I'll have freedom to say what's necessary in order to help people move in the direction that they really want to move. Because everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs somebody, that voice to help give them that extra little push, that extra little encouragement. And at the end of the day, I love that, and I wouldn't stop doing that. For sure, because it's such a great way to connect with people and form a community around something meaningful and healthy. But I just found in that public setting, I wasn't really able to work with people in the way that's truest to me. And that's a one-on-one or small group kind of thing where I'm able to sit down and ask the meaningful questions and just work with people in such a more intimate way, really sharing what's most important, what we're passionate about, what inspires us, and helping to find some ways to live from that space. So coaching was like it was just the next logical step that made all the sense in the world to me, and it just really lit me up when I opened up a space to be able to connect with people in that way. So absolutely necessary, and so much fun, to live from that kind of a space.
Awesome. And it's something too where I just appreciate about you and your partner Donna, just you have that that sort of energy about you that I know that you're telling the truth. I know that you're not faking this. You've got this big smile, and it wasn't always easy. Right now you have a thriving business and things are going good. You have some clients, you have some really good networks and some peers and things like that. But all of us really want to know about how you got there and how you really just got to those places, and what are some of the secrets to living with passion. And I've shared some of the secrets on the show and in some of my other pieces, but to live with passion, everybody has their own unique story to get there. And you have a really interesting story about how you got to the place to understand who you are, what matters the most to you, and how you can live with passion. Would you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't necessarily recommend everybody go my route. I think we can collapse the learning curve a little bit on that. But for me, I found myself as I was working with the Detroit Symphony that I love, like I said, I love the organization. I love being around it, but the role itself was not really fully suited to me. And I just felt very limited in it. When you work for an organization like that, you're often undervalued. Nonprofits, just simply, as much as they believe in their message, they don't have the dough to spread around to pay for somebody who has experience and who has talents. And so you're consistently undervalued. Especially in the administration part of it. So I got to a point there, and the schedule was intense. I had an awesome boss and an awesome mentor. The guy was absolutely phenomenal, who allowed me a certain amount of freedom, and that's the reason I stayed there for the 10 years that I did. But at a certain point, and I remember it, I was just sitting in not his office, but our boss's office, and I had asked for a raise, and they finally came around with something, and they did give me a little bit more money, but it was just really clear understanding that you're going to take this and you're going to step up and you're going to do your job and don't ask for anything more. And I was like, wow, it just really hit me full force that I had to ask myself as I was walking away. I felt that click in my head. I had that instant kind of revelation of wow. And the question came, and it was the question of questions for me is am I willing to live my life on somebody else's terms? How, what, when, everything, how much I'm getting paid, exactly what I'm worth, when I'm going to be there. And when their answer was right there. There was no hesitation. The answer was absolutely 100% no. I'm not willing to live my life on anybody else's terms. I want to live on my terms. And I made that decision, and within a few months I was out of there. And, it left in a positive way. And there was definitely a little decompression time from that. And I went right in. I just decided I had to really start scrambling and looking what am I going to do? Because I just knew I couldn't live like that. And a lot of my friends were a lot of my friends were proud of me. They're like, yeah, that's an amazing stuff. That's really cool. But truth be told, man, I did that out of desperation. And it was just an understanding in myself that I just knew that I couldn't live like that anymore. And so when I took that step, I just started scrambling. I thought, hey, it's this yoga thing. I've been doing this a little bit. Why don't I just do that? Play my trumpet, teach some yoga. And so I went and I did that, and I was scared, for sure. I was terrified, to be honest with how that would go. It seemed insane, but there was a voice in me. There was something in me that said, this is going to be big and this is going to lead to a lot of things, and you really need to follow this, because your intention is pure. Like, you really just want to help people. That's what that voice was telling me, and that's what I followed, and I did that. And it was a great moment. It didn't fix everything. Now, the most shocking for me was that I did that, and it was cool for a minute and really exciting and very freeing, but I found a lot of those same patterns starting to come back around. Some of the lack of motivation, some of that fear really starting to get in the way. And then that, all that doubt of like, well, can I take this to the next level? Can I really keep this going? What do I do? And it was reflected too in me in a relationship that I'd had for a long time. I was in this relationship for years, and it was just not healthy for either of us. And there were so many attachments there, and there were so many things that weren't right within myself that I really needed to work out. And so I wound up at a yoga training, and there was a person there who asked me a question, and hers was really simple. She knew a little bit about my story, and she just asked me, she's like, dude, what are you doing to yourself? And I'm like, wow, what am I doing? And from there, from that moment on, I recognized what was happening. I recognized that I needed to get right with myself and really understand what was most important. And I went back, and as hard as it was, I ended that relationship and started to step forward. And that was the moment that I made a decision that my life would matter. I decided to matter. And that was the game changer. It was cool for me to decide to live on my own terms. I think that's really important for anybody, because we got to live in a way that's really congruent with our deepest values and our deepest wishes and aspirations. But until we decide to matter, all of that is really, really empty. And so if I had a word of advice to anybody, it's like trust in yourself and trust in your gifts, because you've got something in there that really needs to be shared. Yeah. And if you come from that kind of a space, help will come. And if you're open to showing up for yourself and showing up in your own life, you're going to have everything that you need to make that leap. So go for it.
That's so amazing. Just part of my story is that I was working at a computer store for quite a long time, and I have grown in this coaching business and grown to the point where, it was like, okay, well, it's nice to have this extra part-time income, and that was a bit of my comfort zone. And here I was taking on like business clients and all these people where I was challenging them to go that extra mile and step in that extra bit, and to really just get true and understand who they are. And I was doing these really powerful things with clients, and I know that there was transformations happening for me too. But at a point for me, I knew that my time was done with this part-time job. And I don't want to just dissuade things by saying, okay, well, if you're living with passion, you should just drop everything that you have to make money. That's not my point. I knew that there's a season. Actually, the season was perfect. But I think that if you really check in with yourself, when the right time is, or somehow there's something off, and there's an opportunity for you to say, okay, it's time. And for me, I actually heard that for myself, but it actually took an encounter with someone else at my workplace, where the short version is I actually wasn't happy in my work. I wasn't motivated, but I was striving to be motivated all the time. And and I was doing all these incredible things for the first part of the week, and then the weekends would just deflate me. And I just strive to get to that place. And one day, and I just thank him so much for saying this to me. And he said it because he was frustrated at my attitude. And he said, Scott, why are you even here? And I couldn't respond to it. We had a bit of a confrontation, if you will. And I just started pacing up and down the hallway at that workplace. And I started asking myself. It didn't take but 3 days until I said, okay, that's it. Talked with my wife, talked with God, and I was like, hey, I gave my notice. And I didn't have all the things figured out, but I was like, hey, I know that I need to step in. I know that I'm living in passion, but I know that there's a stepping in part that really could happen. And then shortly after that, I actually met you at the Coaching Leadership Academy, and we'll give Ted a big shout out here, because Ted made a big difference in my life in some ways, in some of the messaging and some of the things that he taught me. And the biggest thing I took away from that whole conference is that I realized for myself that I'd been stepping in about 80%. And a lot of people step in that 80% and they don't take that extra plunge to actually say, okay, well, what is that extra 20%? What does that look like? I think that looks like, that's like the raw, most real part of you coming through. And you saying, okay, well, I'm laying it on the floor. I'm laying my reputation. I'm laying everything that I have, everything that's part of me, all my being, and I'm just putting myself into it because I believe it's the right thing. And I'm going in with passion as well as strategy, and I'm just taking that to that next level and expecting more of myself. And it's cool. It's freeing to live in that. Of course, there's doubts and fears that can always come with that. But how about you? Like, tell me a little bit about your encounter. We both had some conversations at Ted's conference there about stepping in. Tell the audience a little bit about stepping in and maybe what you've learned by working with Ted.
Yeah, that it's wholeheartedness, you know. What you described, that 80%, or that, you know, just keeping that into that safety and comfort zone, you know, that's the rat race in so many ways. That's you know, just you're always cutting yourself off from a part of that, and you're continuing to feed the wheel. But there's 80%, that's 20% of yourself that's cut off. That's you're not really connecting with, or really living, or really exploring, and getting into that space. Getting into that extra 20%, you know, or even if it's just that extra 10%, you know, it's that little bit more. Whenever we start to stretch ourselves, that we start to find so much more of our potential within there. And it's always going to feel uncomfortable. Like that's what that space